It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good Saturday afternoon. It's an absolutely beautiful day here in the state of Arkansas. I know that there's some little old game going on at the same time, and if you have to break away, or you're just joining us from that, thank you very much. But if you have to break away, remember you can go up to my website, thekimhammershow.com, and you'll be able to get this. You'll be able to get this segment of the show by going up on the tab, and you can record it, share it with your friends. If you would, please share the website with the friends as well. We try to keep some good current conservative information up there for you to be able to access and to be able to share with your friends. And so just go up to thekimhammershow.com, and you'll be able to get not only today's show, but all the shows in the past, and you can stay well educated and informed here on the Kim Hammer Show. All right, I have on my program today Josh Bryant, who's a state representative, a freshman state representative, although he acts more like a senior representative for first term. He's done pretty good and got right in the middle of the fire right off the bat. So I've got Josh that's going to be on the Kim Hammer Show today, and then Senator Jason Rapert is actually going to be joining us in a little bit because of the heartbeat bill that he is contemplating trying to get on the call that's coming up. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a background, as of yesterday, we did what's called sine die, so that officially ended the original session that we had gone into recess while we were waiting for the maps to get back. We came out of recess, and we were able to get the congressional map dealt with, and also we were able to get a piece of legislation that several legislators and senators worked on, and Josh was the lead representative on the House end. And so I'd like to welcome to the show Representative Josh Bryant. Josh, thanks for joining me on the Kim Hammer Show today.
Well, thank you, Senator Hammer, for having me.
So first of all, first time for you to be on my show. How about telling folks what area you represent to the comfort level you feel like you'd like to share anything about your family or about your personal life, what you do for an occupation, or anything that you'd like the listening audience to know about Josh Bryant?
Sure. I was born there in Little Rock before my family moved up here to the quiet little sleepy town of Bentonville, Arkansas, up in Benton County. And it's where I stayed. It's where I met my wife and took her on an adventure throughout the country, 5 years in the Marine Corps, 12 years working for the federal government before coming back to a not so sleepy town up here in Northwest Arkansas, where I joined a venture in a construction and real estate company, and had tremendous success, very blessed. And I couldn't quite shake some of that federal government. I knew service is in my blood, so I jumped on the county quorum court up here, where I spent 4 years before having a nudge to go into the state legislature, where so far I enjoy it. I hope that my constituents will let me go back in some capacity and try to do some more good for the state of Arkansas.
First of all, thank you for your service to our country, especially being in a Marine. That's not for the faint of heart by any stretch of the imagination. And then having worked for the federal government, I can't imagine what that'd be like. That'd be a load of fun too, I'm sure, at certain times. But do want to say that
never a dull moment. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I tell you that. I bet that could be frustrating, especially being a conservative like you are. That in some ways, did you find yourself in high levels of frustration when you had to deal with certain things because of the bureaucracy? And now, which branch of the federal government did you work for?
I was in the Federal Aviation Administration, and what I found is most of us are like-minded. Whether conservative or liberal, we're like-minded, and we all want good government. It's just the wheels of bureaucracy that just slow things down, and Washington just not getting along and not sending us the resources we need. That typical of probably state government is where the struggles were.
Now you are a freshman legislator, and you've done a good job on the House end from my perspective. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because we worked together on the legislation we're going to talk about today, which if you want to go ahead and look it up, you can look it up as Senate Bill 739 and House Bill 1977. Those are the two bills that we ran, and we'll talk about the rationale of why we ran two bills that are identical in just a second. But let me ask you, as a freshman legislator, what have you learned so far, and what would you say to encourage people to think about getting involved in service, whether it's at the local level, school board, JP, or whatever the case may be? You kind of having been on both sides, both in the military, working for the federal government. Now you are a representative of the people at the state level. So what would you say is the most educational thing that you've learned so far in your term as a first-term representative?
I'd probably, it's kind of funny. If you would have asked me that 3 months ago after the regular session, my answer would be different than, jumping into the fight that we had the last 2 weeks of trying to get some protections out there through both the Senate bill and House bill you referenced. But I'd say, you got to come to the Capitol prepared to stand up for your principles, stand up for why you felt led to come down there in the first place. And I think if you do that and you don't sit quietly and just nod your head, go along, get along, which there's plenty of time for that. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to go down there to be effective. If not, you should probably step aside and let somebody else that's willing to do that come down. So, but for the most part, I think every legislature on either side of the aisle wants what's good for their constituent. We just got different ways to go about it.
So let me ask you, as we kind of look at this piece of legislation that you and I ran together, was this something that you wanted, or was this something, I mean, I know my answer, but let me give you a chance to, give your answer. Is this something that you wanted? Was this something that your constituents were asking for? What is it that drove you to be so passionate about the legislation we ran?
I'd say what's interesting is that it started out with constituents calling me. And my answer was, hey, we've got avenues on these mandates through Title VII protections. Just exhaust those resources before, the state government needs to get involved, or I need to get involved. And then obviously gave me time to do a little more research and understand the issue. But when these same constituents were calling back saying we've exhausted it, they've given us the exemptions, and then in the same breath say, but they also gave us, a 12-month non-paid pink slip. How am I going to provide for my family? And the calls just kept coming in. I could not get involved because I agreed with them. I agreed, hey, if we give up these freedoms, if we give up our medical choice, of which employers have no liability, if an employer is going to make a condition of employment but accept no liability if that condition harms me or harms my ability to support my family, that, to me, that's the role of government, is to step in and protect those personal and medical choices of the individual. Only then do we have true liberty. So I jumped in the fight. I'm so glad, Senator Hammer, you jumped on with me, and so many other senators and representatives that saw, the precursor of what may come down from the Biden administration, or what would happen if we stood by and did nothing. So I guess it's a two-part answer. I would love for our existing laws to have worked, but when large corporations decide that they can ignore those laws because the people they're affecting probably don't have the resources to fight against them, that's, to me, is the role of government. We got to step up and protect the individual.
All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to give the nutshell of the bill, and we'll get into the weeds here in a little bit. But because I want to go back and ask you to expand your thought on something that you said. So what this bill did basically, or what it does now, because it has been enacted by law, the governor did not sign it, but he didn't veto it. He just let it go into law, which is one of his options that he's not going to resist. He's just going to let it go into law without his support, basically. And two of the main components, or one of the main components, was that what we wanted to do was create for employees the option that if they didn't want to take the vaccine, that they would have the ability to be able to provide evidence that they had the antibodies built up into their system, which we know from studies would be and are in some cases just as effective as the vaccine in fighting back against the COVID virus and those mutations from it. The other thing that it would do is that it would give them the option also to submit to a weekly test that they could pick of their choice, but had to be approved, and that those would be two of the options for them to be able to submit in lieu of getting the vaccine. That's the whole heartbeat of the bill, if you would, leading into Senator Rapert, who's going to join us in a little bit. But you just mentioned something about the medical objection, but you also mentioned about the religious objection. Those are the two standing objections that an employee can give. And you hit it on the head a while ago. It's not that we really wanted to get involved in this, but we were pretty well pushed into getting involved into it because that extended pink slip you told about a minute ago. Drill down on that now, because with people understanding what the bill was intended to do, now maybe it'll be a little bit clearer about why we needed to address this based on what some companies are doing by giving people their exemption, but then what do they do? And Senator Rapert, I think you've joined us on the Kim Hammer Show now. Is that correct? All right, he'll kick in a minute. Okay, Josh, go ahead and explain about that extended pink slip and how that plays out.
Yeah, what I come to find out is in the numerous constituents, and not only just my constituents, but when people start seeing state leaders that they feel like are on their team. I got calls from Jonesboro, Little Rock, Marion, all over the state, saying, "Hey, that's me. My employer, encouraged me to file, for a religious exemption or medical exemption. They grilled me on it to make sure it was valid. Then they approved it, and then their accommodation was they needed to send me home. But by the way, the same employee next to me that has a different, skill set, they let stay on and just wear a mask and eat outdoors. So it never really came down to me. It came down to, these corporations saying, this is what's best for the employee. It came down to what is best for our bottom line. Can we lose this employee and our bottom line not suffer versus can we lose this one and our bottom line? And if the answer was no, they kept and retained that employee, but basically sent this one to go fend for himself for 12 months. And, if you decide to get the vaccine, we'll give you access back to our employment roster, or if we change our policy, we might call you back. So really the employee was left with no option except for to resign, lose their benefits package, and go find other employment, which some people say, hey, that's part of the conservative philosophy. It's your choice. Well, again, to me, if that's their choice, let it be their choice. Let it be business fighting business. But when these businesses have their hands out to the government saying, give us more, and then let, the citizens that paid those taxes to give to those businesses are affected, then the government, to me, the state needs to step in and just draw the line and say, this is where it is.
Okay. All right. Senator Jason Rapert, have you gotten on the program? Well, we got to disconnect somehow. We'll get him looped in here a minute because he did help out on the Senate side as far as just getting through. Let's do this, Jason or Josh. Let's go through the bill. Again, it's Senate Bill 739 and it's House Bill 1977. These are companion bills. In other words, they are exactly alike. The reason that we ran companion bills was because there's an emergency clause on the back side of it. And for those of you that don't know what the emergency clause is, that is allowed in the Constitution that when a piece of legislation is passed, if 2/3 of the majority of the House and the Senate, and they both have to have 2/3 on either chamber or 2/3 on either chamber, if we get to the 2/3 threshold, this bill would have went into effect immediately as soon as either the governor signed it or the governor would have just let it go into law without his signature. We couldn't ever get to that threshold. There was some strategic positioning as far as why we ran two bills in the event that we could get one on one end and we could get one on the other end. And then if the emergency clause didn't pass on either end, hopefully by the time it got up to the other chamber, there would have been enough momentum and enough swing votes in order to get there. We just couldn't get there. We got it on the House end, but we couldn't get it on the Senate end. So first of all, that's why there were two different bills. Have I missed anything on that, Josh?
No, it's accurate.
Okay. So the bills passed. They went to the governor's desk. Now he had till 11:59 Wednesday night to sign the legislation into law. He opted, as you know now, it's old news because it happened Wednesday and this is Saturday. He opted to not sign it, but he did not veto it either. So that means that it became law. Now, we sine died on Friday, yesterday, which means that the general session that started back in January is finally over. You can breathe easy, okay? It is finally over. But what happens now is, because we couldn't get the emergency clause, is it's going to be 90 days before the protection that is created in the legislation is going to be afforded to people. Let me just take a breath and, Josh, get you to weigh in on any of that, or what your perspective is as far as the emergency clause not getting through and everything I just said.
Yeah, I think that emergency clause was critical to get through, and we couldn't get it done. The House got theirs done, but the Senate just didn't have the fortitude for it. And I don't begrudge any senator that didn't feel like it was necessary for immediate relief. I know dozens of people that they have pretty much thrown their hands in the air, and they're going to have to figure out how else to, make income, because they do anticipate they will be, either they already have been dismissed or they will be dismissed. Other unintended consequences are, it gives the companies 90 days to basically drop the hammer on these folks and force their policy down before they get it. And something else I didn't mention, the reason maybe I felt like compelled to get involved is because we weren't talking about, hardware store against hardware store. We were talking about large corporations with their broad impact, and they were mandating businesses they don't own but contract with, or businesses that contract with a contractor, to have the same policy for their employees or lose their contract. So it, like I said, it wasn't just simple capitalism and competition, but it was corporately owned, publicly traded companies that were pushing down these mandates, of which, even though we don't have the 90 days we got to wait 90 days before we get there. Once that 90-day passes, these employees will be protected, and these employers will have to allow other exemptions in the law outside of Title VII to say, hey, you can do these things as well.
All right. Senator Rapert, we got you on now?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you. We had a little technical trouble there. Thanks for getting in. Josh and I are talking about Senate Bill 739 and House Bill 1977. And one thing I wanted to get thrown in there as well is that the reason for 90 days, it is in the Constitution that whenever we pass a piece of legislation, that if it doesn't have an emergency clause, it has to sit for 90 days, or it doesn't take effect for 90 days, so that if people want to rise up and disagree with something that we've done legislatively, it would allow them the opportunity to do an initiated act or something of that nature in order to be able to undo what we've done as a legislature. So just a little history there. If it had the emergency clause, it would have went into effect as soon as the governor signed it, or the 5 days passed where it would have went into law without his signature. But because we couldn't get it on there, now we've got to wait 90 days, which is built into the Constitution. That's a safety gap so that the public can have a chance to voice opposition to anything we may do in the legislative branch. One of the things, Senator Rapert, that we were talking about was, and Josh was hitting on it, that part of the reason this bill was also born was because there were employers who wanted to give their employees the protection of not having to get the vaccine, but they knew what was coming down the line from the federal government, and they wanted some safety measures built in that we as a state would give them, so that they could say, look, the law says I've got to allow you some options. Wink, wink. That's what we really want, because we don't want the federal government telling us what to do in this matter. And so this bill also provides to the employer, the businesses, that opportunity that now they can give that exemption. And Senator Rapert, you hit on one thing on the floor, because when I was presenting the bill, you pointedly asked the question, this doesn't really apply to anybody unless they mandate that their employers get the vaccine. Let me introduce you into the conversation and pick up, and if you remember that point you made, because you asked me that question when I was presenting that day on the floor.
That's exactly right, because the only situation that's going to arise here is if an employer just makes the decision that they want to try to force their employees to take a vaccination or to take an injection. Frankly, I'm tired of calling this particular vaccine a vaccine when it has not behaved at the kind of efficacy levels that you would expect out of a vaccine. And I'm also disappointed. I actually had exchanged messages between myself and Governor Hutchinson this past week, where I urged him to do just like Governor Abbott had done.
Yep.
And since we were unable to get the emergency clause, he could have stepped up. So the people of Arkansas need to know that Governor Hutchinson could have stepped up and used his executive authority to protect them. But what I am proud to see happening is the pilots at Southwest Airlines and others that are beginning to stand up and say this has gone too far. And I think the American people now realize that this is a very much contrived situation. And I think there's going to be a lot of people embarrassed and will have to apologize that they threatened to fire people because they didn't want to take an ineffective injection. It's really gone too far, and it's to the point where I can just sum up where I stand. The Declaration of Independence outlined life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as foundational God-given rights. And this policy that they were about to enter into is the first time that I can recall in my lifetime that people were threatened to be fired, their families hurt, maybe harmed without any repair or opportunity for any kind of compensation to repair and make them whole in the future. It's just too far, and it's beyond what should be allowable in our state and in our nation. And I'm probably just saying the same things you and Representative Bryant have already said. I absolutely stand with the people. I stand with people's individual liberty, and I fought the Biden mandate as well as the employer mandates because this is not the right time for this sort of policy.
You know, what was interesting is the mayor of Chicago, the unions, some of the unions are finally waking up, which unions are always traditionally been heavily supported by Democrats, and let's make no mistake about it. The Democrats are the ones that are pushing this. Republicans to a certain degree as well, but I think there's a little bit more of a iron sharpening iron among the Republicans. But what is so ironic to me is that you see unions like the Chicago Police Union, who the mayor mandated that they had to have their vaccines by yesterday, or she was going to suspend them without pay, and up to 50%, it was reported, of the Chicago Police Department are not vaccinated, and the union president said, fine, we're walking off the job. Now,
that's right.
Let me introduce, we'll get back to the bill in a minute, but let's introduce a little bit of conservative talk here for a second. Would it be the goal and the objective that if you wanted to take down America, that you would introduce confusion, division, and you would want to put people in a position where their safety is threatened, such as the police departments, 50% of Chicago Police Department walking off, or look at the vast number of the military? And these are all working people that are about to be put to the street by the Biden administration and by those who are not standing up against it. And as conservatives, let me just ask both of y'all to weigh in on that. How do you see that demoralizing or bringing down the effectiveness and the security of the nation?
Well, Senator, Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. That was Ronald Reagan. Freedom's never more than one generation away from extinction. And this generation is under assault. And I said this recently in one of my other presentations, Senator Hammer, and that is that the left, the woke left, the liberal elites in this nation, they already believe they are waging a revolution. And what we need to do as conservatives and Christian conservatives all across this country is to wake up and understand what they are doing. They are creating chaos on the streets with BLM protests, with Antifa protests. They are trying to squelch liberty with these mandates because when they see they can accomplish them, they will go further and even do more. They are trying to get into your everyday life by proposing that the IRS would snoop on every $600 transaction in your bank accounts. We need to wake up in this nation and understand this chaos is not accidental, and it's not all just the pandemic. They are using the pandemic and they are using the chaos to absolutely fundamentally change the country, and the rest of the nation needs to get our heads up out of the sand and realize that this is what they're doing.
All right, I've got to take a break, but Josh, when we come back, I'm going to let you have a shot at that answer. We're going to talk a little bit more about this bill, and then we're going to get Senator Rapert to talk about the heartbeat bill, what's happened in Texas, how that's going to affect us during the upcoming special session. You're listening to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM. The Answer. You can go up to thekimhammershow.com in order to watch the show again or share it. I have on as my guest today Representative Josh Bryant, who is a freshman in the House of Representatives that sponsored House Bill 1977, a companion bill to Senate Bill 739. I've got Senator Jason Rapert on, who is the host of Save the Nation, heard every day here on 101.1 FM The Answer from 1 to 2 o'clock, Monday through Friday here on 101.1 FM The Answer. We're going to take a quick break and come back and join us. Thank you. Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. My guests today are Senator Jason Rapert, who is the host of the new program, Save the Nation, heard here on 101.1 FM The Answer, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 o'clock. And then I have Representative Josh Bryant from up in the Bentonville area, freshman legislator who has done seasonal work already on the carrying of these two bills. So before the break, I was talking about how that, if I was wanting to bring down the nation, doing things like the Democrat mayor of Chicago is doing, threatening, as of last night, the police had to be vaccinated or they're going to be suspended without pay. And the union up there basically said, fine, see you later, which is really going to help a city like Chicago that's got the crime rate under the Democrat mayor that's going on up there. And then you've got like the military, where Biden has given the issue under federal orders that they have to get the vaccine. And you got career dedicated military service personnel who's been through the battles of Afghanistan, are now being confronted with having to lose their careers, and about how that brings such a unstable environment to the nation and can threaten our very existence when you attack on those two fronts. All right, Josh, let me hear your response. You heard Senator Rapert's a minute ago. What about your response to that?
Yeah, Senator Hammer, I echo everything that Senator Rapert said on that. I don't think we have to look too far than our history books to see how this could end if we do nothing. There's a meme shared that, hey, we got to remember to set our clocks back, ... to 1942, and it's a picture of a German soldier looking for the papers at a Jewish girl. And we're looking at, in New Orleans, I had a buddy that's in New Orleans doing work for the federal government and just torn on what decision he has to make. I think he said his deadline is in mid-November to lose a career of 27 years or get a shot that he wants nothing to do with because he's a 52-year-old healthy male. But in New Orleans, he said he couldn't go get a hamburger or go to the casino without showing his papers. And the fact that it's just and I try not to be a partisan guy, but these are such partisan issues to see what a Democrat-led city will get versus he can go, just right down the road to Metairie, and it's more of a conservative town, and they're living life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without these mandates. So again, just look at your history books to see how this plays. If good people do not stand up and do nothing, then we know how the answer is going to be.
Well, one thing I noticed too was Biden went to Virginia to campaign for the governor over there, and he was not well received. And the one thing that we can hope for, and again, I think this is something that people really need to focus on, is this is not the time to get discouraged. This is the time to be emboldened and be ready to show up in 22 for the election, because one thing we need to do is to put out as many Democrats out of office as we can at every level. And when you see the unpopular stance that people are taking toward the Democrats, one thing I think that can be helpful is for people to get motivated to remember that you make the decision to go vote in 2022 now. You don't wait till 2022 to go vote. You are determined now, and you make sure that people are registered to vote. You make sure that people are motivated to go out and vote. And we will watch the elections to make sure that there is no, especially here in Arkansas with the legislative package we got through last time, to make sure that election integrity is secure. The one thing, and I would ask you gentlemen if you would agree, The one thing we cannot do right now is to allow people to think that their vote doesn't make a difference, that they need to have long memories when it comes to all these things and show up to vote in 2022. What do you say?
Well, I agree that this is the time for people to stand up. There are too many things that are occurring in our country that are not accidental. They're not just coincidental. There is a planned effort, in my opinion, Senator Hammer, to fundamentally upend the United States of America. I mean, you've also had the Congress, for the first time in the history of our nation, the United States House of Representatives, the Democrats, voted to allow abortion right up until birth, okay? Well, that had never happened before in our country. So they are pushing the envelope in every area: social policy, fiscal policy, freedom, liberty. It's my opinion that the good people of this country, that have, a lot of them are out there working every day, taking care of their families, but they haven't been voting. We are pleading for you to please take the time to get engaged and to vote, because if you don't do it now, you may lose the America that you've enjoyed.
Josh?
Totally agree. I think one thing about where I was raised up here in Northwest Arkansas is we've kind of maybe led the state in conservative leadership. And as I attend meetings where, a year ago there was maybe 30 people at the event, now there's 100 people at the event. And one thing I tried to drill into them is your vote matters, and do not just be complacent. What brought you here today needs to bring you to the voting polls in November, and you need to stay with it and not lose heart.
All right. So in summary on the bill, and then you hit on a second ago, I want to save some time for you, Senator Rapert, to talk about the heartbeat bill, what's happened in Texas, what's going to happen here in Arkansas. But on this bill, we stated the intent, we stated the objection of the overreaching federal government. Gets down to where employees that an employer that mandates that their employee must be vaccinated has to provide for the option of weekly testing, and also for the ability to present evidence that would show antigen tests. The one thing, and actually I think Senator Rapert, I shared it on your Save the Nation show earlier this week, is that if you go and give blood, that you can actually, they will tell you if you got the antigen in your blood or not. And it doesn't cost you anything but a pint of blood, which they need blood right now, so it'd be a good thing to go out and give blood. But all you got to do is present that, and then it goes on, and it also says that that the employee actually gets to pick which test you want to take if you're going to do the weekly test and submit that route. It just has to be an approved test, and those tests have become more and more affordable, and they're becoming more and more available. So that is a method to work around getting the vaccine. And the one thing that the state chamber raised issue about was about us losing our employment at will doctrine status as a state. And it's specifically stated in the bill that nothing in this section should be interpreted to modify any agreements between the employer and employee, or to amend the effect of the employment at will doctrine, whether written or otherwise. So we were pretty clear on that one, just because there was concern. So if anybody tells you that, you can dismiss that as well. And that's the one thing that was kind of bothersome to me, but it happens in the legislature, is people sit down and say a lot of things that they can't always back up, and they say a lot of things just to intimidate and bring fear into the heart of the members, which may cause them not to vote for a good piece of legislation. But it's clearly outlined in here. And then we've already talked about the emergency clause, and we wish we could have got that through. We got something. Did we get enough? No. But as the senator mentioned also, there is another route. It just takes an executive order, and who knows, maybe that would happen after enough outcry. So, all right, let's transition gears. And Josh, you stay on if you want to and join in on this. But Senator Rapert, I've caught wind of something about the heartbeat bill. Anything you want to share about that on the Kim Hammer Show?
Well, yes. As you know, the governor's announced that he plans to bring us back in the week of October the 25th for a special session for the purpose, at least one purpose, of cutting income taxes here in Arkansas, which is a wonderful thing. I support that. But this is an opportunity for us to take up legislation that needs to happen that many in our state would like to see occur. And everybody has been dialed in very clearly on the state of Texas. Texas passed the Texas Heartbeat Bill, which had included in it a very novel and a new route to try to curb abortion, which is a civil cause of action. And what that means is rather than empower state actors like a governor or a health department, et cetera, that would be the ones to enforce a bill trying to ban abortions in a state, this allows this to occur in a civil situation in the civil justice system. And what's so exciting and novel about this is that because the state has been removed as the enforcement mechanism, there is no way right now for them to stop that bill in the state of Texas, because it's all predicated on individuals that decide to bring a suit because somebody has either tried to help, aid, or abet or perform an abortion in the state of Texas. In fact, Texas now has over 40 days that they have stopped abortion basically in their state, because that heartbeat bill, as we all know, in Arkansas, March the 6th of 2013, we passed the nation's first heartbeat bill right here in our state. A federal judge knocked that down because it had the normal enforcement mechanism in the bans that were in place. But we have seen children saved just by the fact that we have the informed consent provisions, which inform a lady of a heartbeat in her womb if she presents to an abortion clinic. So given the national attention on this and the fact that we saw this go all the way to the Supreme Court and test whether they could stop and have an injunction on this particular method in Texas, they've allowed it to stay in place. Now, there is another suit that's come down there, but a federal judge has already said that the injunction cannot be enforced and that they can continue to stop abortions in the state of Texas. So, Senator Hammer, I was the original sponsor on the Arkansas heartbeat bill back in 2013, and now we see another opportunity to be able to use a different strategy to stop abortions. And as you know, based on your efforts and Representative Bryant and our colleagues in our state, we have been deemed the most pro-life state in the country. We literally passed a total abortion ban this spring. But guess what? It had the enforcement mechanism in the normal way. So the federal judge has already placed an injunction on the SB 6. So given the fact that we see this being successful with the heartbeat bill, I've publicly asked Asa Hutchinson to put the heartbeat bill on the call, and I'm rallying people around the state and inviting legislators that want to co-sponsor this bill to jump on and let's take the action that is in our hands to take to stop abortion. In fact, it's going to be successful if we will do it, and the reason I know that, Senator Hammer, is Planned Parenthood has already announced they're unleashing a war in Arkansas against life to ensure that we do not put in place an Arkansas heartbeat bill with a civil cause of action. So, Senator Hammer, we say that we're the most pro-life state in the country. It's time for legislators and the governor of Arkansas to step up and do what we know will help stop abortions, and that is passing an Arkansas heartbeat bill that has a civil cause of action. So I'm hopeful that we can get 2/3 of our legislature to support that, because if the governor doesn't put it on the call, we're going to have a special authority to take it up.
To that point, I know the answer to this, but for the benefit of those that don't, talk about the special session, and you talk about the call, you talk about 2/3. Give the working mechanics of a special session. I mean, we just finished up with our regular session that had a recess tagged on the back of it. We sine-died yesterday, so we're officially adjourned from the general session that started in January, which incidentally, the only reason it was held up was because the Biden administration wouldn't release the numbers. That's the long and short of it. We wouldn't have gone that long had the Democrat Joe Biden got the numbers released, but, they didn't. So we finished that up yesterday. Now, within 2 weeks, we're going to go into a special session. Why did we not take up the tax package then? And I think people need to understand why it is that we're coming right back and looking at going into a session again. And what does it take to do a special session?
Well, in very simple terms, and you can ask questions to dig into another area if you want to there, Senator Hammer, but in simple terms, a special session is called by the governor of the state of Arkansas. It's usually called for a specific purpose. That's what they mean, putting the issue on the call. And so if the governor does not list maybe to take up legislation to stop abortion or to address abortion in our state, if he doesn't put something in there that allows us to file a bill because it appears on the call, then we have to get support from 2/3 of both the House of Representatives and the state Senate in order to be able to take up a particular bill. The reason this is important is because we have seen our abortion legislation continually challenged, and when you have basically federal judges that are not pro-life, they strike down our laws all the time. And so now that we see this new approach in Texas, we know that currently, if Arkansas will pass this bill, Planned Parenthood will be shut down. The surgical abortion clinic in Arkansas will be shut down. There will be babies that are saved. There are over 3,000 babies, they already claim, that have been saved in Texas. And what's happening, a lot of those people seeking abortions are flooding into neighboring states like Arkansas. We don't want to be the abortion haven. We want to abolish abortion in Arkansas. So therefore, the governor of this state has the ability to put it on the call, and legislators have the ability to take up the bill. It's real simple. We already know our stance on abortion. We just need to use that civil cause of action so we can stop abortions for at least a season in Arkansas, if not forever.
Josh, you're a freshman legislator. Put you on the spot. What do you think?
I think it's a tall task to get 2/3 of either chamber to extend a session. I know when we tried to extend it during the special session to discuss the mask bill that I sponsored in the House along with Senator Garner in the Senate, that they fought us all the way through to not hear any other bills and not pass any extension to the call that the governor had. So I'm supportive of it. I'm doing my part to rally my troops and hope that we can get something done to end abortion once and for all in Arkansas.
Well, you know how it goes, Senator Hammer. The people of Arkansas are watching all of us, and thank you, Representative Bryant, for your support on that. And here's the thing. There are push card Republicans out there. They put on their cards they're Republicans, but they just never do the heavy lifting to make something happen. And I want the state of Arkansas to know that legislators that say they're pro-life, and we're the most pro-life state in the country, we do have the ability to simply say aye and take up a bill that would stop abortions. And so if they don't, elections are next year, and the people of Arkansas can take a look and see whether they want to put somebody back in that refused to do what they could when they had the power to do it.
Let me put it in context, because this is the way I'm looking at it, and this is where I'm going to go public on it. We could wait and do it in the general session of 2023. The Texas law, and Senator, educate me on this, the Texas law has or has not been challenged in the court system yet, or what is the status of any challenges against the Texas law?
It's been challenged twice.
And
it went actually all the way to the Supreme Court, who refused to do an emergency order to allow it to be stopped. And this is why it's novel and why it is actually saving lives. So then what happened is a citizen in the state of Arkansas filed suit against someone who said that they performed an abortion in Texas in violation of the law. That then prompted a challenge based on that issue, that there was a suit that had been filed. You had a federal judge issued a 113-page opinion, which, by the way, tells you it really wasn't simple and he was stretching. He issued a 113-page opinion to say he issued an injunction. Immediately, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down that judge's injunction. That means that the Texas bill has been challenged 2 times through the federal system, and it's now enforced. They have not been able to stop it. So we do have an ability currently in this situation to be able to stop abortions utilizing this. And we're in a different circuit, by the way, than Texas. And so part of the process and part of the strategy in America is that you take up these policies in different federal circuits, pushing forward, pushing the policy in hopes that you can get a change. The other great thing is December the 1st, Senator Hammer, the United States Supreme Court hears the first oral arguments in 30 years on a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade with the Mississippi case. but it would be June 30th of next year before the current term for the Supreme Court is over. So if we want to save babies, we do what we can when we can.
And that's the point.
So that means that's the point, that we move right now. So I gave you a long answer because, yes, there's been 2 attempts to challenge it, and they both have been unsuccessful. So this is why I feel like that this is worth taking up. And, it's never hard to do the right thing. It's hard when people try to find an excuse to get out of doing the right thing. And so that's why I think that the state legislature and the governor, this ought to be an easy lift.
Well, and yeah, go ahead, Josh. But that was the point I wanted to drive home to, and that is this: we could wait till 2023 and do it in the general session, but the question is, how many babies will be aborted in the meantime in Arkansas if we don't take advantage of the opportunity that we have now? And I think that's the defining point. It'd be almost like knowing that you have the opportunity to save somebody, but you wait for somebody else to come do your job for you. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to take this up, use what's already been challenged in the courts and has successfully been defended. So it's not like we're going to drag, because that's what they always throw at us, is you're just getting us in another lawsuit. Well, the precedence has already been set, so we should be able to do this and not be minimized by the fears of a court challenge. And that would also mean that somebody in Texas could sue an abortion clinic here in Arkansas, just like somebody in Arkansas turned around and sued somebody in Texas. Is that correct?
That's right. And the civil cause of action is against the actor, right? So the person or the individual that actually is trying to aid or abet an abortion or perform an abortion, that's the one that would be sued on this in a civil cause of action like this. And so very important. We'll be getting the information out there, Senator Hammer, and what we ask the people of Arkansas to do is to tell your legislators to support the Arkansas Heartbeat Protection Act. Representative Mary Bentley, Senator Hammer, has already agreed to be the prime sponsor in the House. You have to have a lead sponsor, and she has agreed to carry this in the Arkansas House, and we're very hopeful that many of our colleagues will be able to sign up and show support. It'd be great to roll into that special session with the 2/3 people that we need beforehand. But if not, then there will be resolutions will be offered in each chamber, and there will be a vote. And the people of Arkansas will see, are you really the most pro-life state in the country, or are you not? Okay.
Josh, anything you want to say? I'm out of time, but we'll give you an opportunity on anything that's been shared on the Kim Hammer Show today.
I'll just wrap up my thoughts by thanking Senator Rapert for his leadership in this. It takes guts to do what you're doing, and it takes guts for Representative Bentley to jump on board. And I just appreciate leaders that step forward and do what they say they're going to do.
Senator, you got anything you want to say in closing?
I just thank God that we've got great people like Representative Bryant that's coming into the system. I'm going to be getting to the end of my time in the Senate next year at 12 years. It's been an honor to serve, and I hope that I can continue as Lieutenant Governor in the state of Arkansas. And it's good to see that people like Representative Bryant and people like you are hanging in there, Senator Hammer. We need you. We need conservative Christians serving in office at every level.
Well, and that's, I think that's one thing that we've got to do is to cultivate those that are going to come up behind us to make sure we got a broad bench, a long bench that we can pull players from, and not only at our level, but also at the local level, as they say. I mean, with the challenges that are going on, in the school districts and what we're seeing happen in other parts of the nation, I think that what people need to realize is where you get involved does not matter as long as you get involved and you're willing to put yourself in a position to do what it takes to get elected. Because if we don't have good, solid conservatives at every level, that's where the erosion is going to take place, and we need to maintain a strong front. All right, this is the Kim Hammer Show. My guests today have been Senator Jason Rapert. You can listen to him actually here on 101.1 FM every day from 1 to 2 o'clock on the program Save the Nation. And then also I wanted to thank Representative Josh Bryant from up in the Bentonville area for joining me here on the Kim Hammer Show today. in the next few weeks. Just kind of stay tuned because I get bumped in the next 3 or 4 weeks periodically for OBU football, so you'll just have to stay tuned. And if you tune in at noon on Saturday to the Kim Hammer Show and you don't hear me and you hear football, just know that I should be back the following week, and we'll just try to continue to have some good programming lined up for you. I hope you have a great day, and just remember this, if you would. People paid a high price for us to have the freedoms that we enjoy. My prayer would be that you would consider getting involved in the fight, both in supporting those that hold the conservative line, but also you yourself, if you are conservative, that you would consider getting involved in the fight too, and come on and join us in the fight for freedom and get into the politics and get into the office. This is Kim Hammer Show. This is Kim Hammer, your host. Thank you for listening today.